I want you to do something for me right now. Just for a moment. Stop whatever you're doing. I mean, if you were driving, obviously keep your eyes on the road.
Right.
But otherwise, I want you to turn your mind completely inward. Imagine you are sitting in a totally empty room.
Okay.
No windows, no doors, no furniture, just blank white walls and complete silence.
I am there. It is a bit claustrophobic, honestly, but I am there.
Now, in this vacuum, in this
Yeah.
absolute silence,
Yeah.
I want you to try to do something that sounds impossible. I want you to try to think something into existence.
Think something into existence. You mean like telekinesis or something? Bending spoons with my
No,
mom?
not magic, logic,
Mhm.
pure unadulterated reason.
Mhm.
I want you to define something so perfectly, so completely, with such absolute ironclad precision that the universe basically has no choice but to make it real. I want you to construct a definition that forces reality to bend the knee.
I am trying. I really am. I am thinking about a massive stack of cash, let's say $1 million. I am defining the non-sequential serial numbers. I am defining the smell of the ink, the crisp texture of the linen paper.
And
Huh.
check your pocket.
And my pocket is tragically empty.
Exactly. That is the wall we all hit. That is the fundamental frustration of the human condition. There's this rigid, seemingly unbreakable barrier between the world of our thoughts, the concepts, the software in our heads, and the concrete reality of the world outside. The hardware. Usually to cross that gap, to get from idea to reality, you need a bridge.
Right. You need materials, you need labor, you need energy. I cannot just code a sandwich into reality. I have to actually go to the kitchen, get the bread, get the cheese, and assemble it. That is how the world works. That is empiricism, evidence, action, result.
But what if there was a loophole?
The loophole in physics.
A loophole in logic. A backdoor in the source code of existence itself. What if there was one specific concept, just one singular idea in the infinite library of human thoughts that is so unique, so powerful, that the moment you truly understand its definition, you realize it absolutely must exist, that the definition itself acts as the bridge?
You are really taking us to the edge of the map today. You are talking about the ontological argument.
We are going to the absolute edge. I am your host, and together we are going to explore this. This is the Highwire Act of philosophy. It is the attempt to prove the existence of God, not by looking at the stars, not by looking at biology or evolution or the complexity of the human eye, but by looking strictly at a definition. Pure reason. No test tubes, no telescopes. Just the mind.
It is the most audacious argument in the history of human thought. And frankly, for someone like me who really likes concrete evidence, it is also the most frustrating. It feels like a magic trick where you know you're being fooled, but you just cannot find the wire. You feel the trap snapping shut, but you cannot see the mechanism. I am your co-host, by the way, and I will be playing the skeptic today.
Today, we are going to find that wire. We are diving deep into a stack of fascinating material, specifically drawing from J.R. Ahmed's heavy-hitting work called The Ontological Argument in Philosophy and the Quran. We are going to trace this intellectual thread from the cold stone cells of 11th century monks to the lecture halls of modern logic, and then, and this is the twist that makes this deep dive so special, we are going to see how the Quran handles this exact same territory.
And that comparison is what makes this deep dive so interesting to me, because usually when we talk about this stuff, you have the God of the philosophers, this abstract mathematical necessity, and the God of religion, who is personal and revealed. And usually they do not talk to each other. They sit at different tables in the cafeteria. But J.R. Ahmed is forcing them into the same room to see if they're actually talking about the exact same reality.
It is going to be a collision of worlds, so buckle up. Put on your thinking cap, make sure it is a really tight fit, and maybe grab a real sandwich, because we are about to mess with your head. We are talking about perfect islands, impossible triangles, the multiverse, and the very fabric of reality.
Let us start with the trap. You called it an intellectual trap.
It is a trap, but a beautiful one.
Yeah.
To understand this, we have to travel back in time. We are going to the year 1078. We are in Normandy at the Bec Abbey. It is cold, it is quiet, and we are visiting a Benedictine monk named Anselm.
Anselm of Canterbury, later St. Anselm. Now, it is important to set the scene here for everyone listening. This is not a guy trying to convert atheists on the internet. Atheism as we know it, the assertive denial of God, did not really exist as a cultural force back then. He was a believer. He was a monk.
Right. He was not looking for evidence to believe. He already believed, and he wanted the logic to match the belief. His motto was Fides quaerens intellectum, faith seeking understanding. He was deeply distressed, actually. He tells us he could not sleep, he lost his appetite. He was obsessed with finding a single argument that proved God exists without needing to point at a tree or a sunset and say, look, a designer.
He wanted what we call an a priori argument.
Let us pause and define that, because we are going to be swimming in that term today. A priori.
It is Latin from the earlier. It refers to knowledge that is totally independent of experience. Math is the classic example here. You do not need to go out into the world and conduct a survey of apples to know that 2 + 2 = 4. You do not need to observe 1,000 circles to know a circle is round. You can do that calculation in a dark room with your eyes closed. It is true purely by definition.
Versus a posteriori, which is from the later knowledge based on observation. The sky is blue is a posteriori. You have to actually look at the sky to know that. If you lived in a cave your whole life, you would not know the sky is blue.
So Anselm wants a God proof that works exactly like 2 + 2 = 4. He wants a proof that works in the dark room. He wants to prove God exists using nothing but the software of the mind.
Exactly. So he starts praying, thinking, struggling. He's pacing his cell. And then one night during Matins, the early morning prayer, it hits him. A definition. He defines God as, and get ready for the mental gymnastics here, that than which nothing greater can be conceived.
In Latin, aliquid quo nihil maius cogitari potest.
It is a mouthful, but let's strip it down. He is saying, imagine the absolute pinnacle of being, maximum power, maximum knowledge, maximum goodness. Push your imagination to the absolute limit of what is possible. Do not just think of a big guy in the sky. Think of the ultimate, the ceiling of reality.
Okay, I am doing it. I am imagining the ultimate being, the greatest possible thing. I have got a picture in my head.
Good. Now answer me this. Where does that being exist right now?
Well, currently.
Yeah.
It exists in my head, in my imagination, in my understanding.
Anselm calls it intellectuary.
Great. Now here is the pivot. This is where the trap snaps shut. I want you to compare two scenarios. Scenario A, you have this greatest possible being, and it exists only in your mind. It is imaginary, like a unicorn or a dragon. Scenario B, you have that same exact being, same power, same goodness, same definition, but this one exists in your mind and in reality. It is real. It is out there and real. Which one is greater? Well, intuitively, the one that actually exists is greater. A real pile of gold is better than an imaginary pile of gold. A real cure for cancer is infinitely greater than the mere concept of a cure. Existence adds value. Existence adds power. An imaginary firefighter cannot save you from a burning building.
Exactly. Now use that exact logic. If your greatest possible being exists only in your mind, then it isn't actually the greatest possible being.
Because I could conceive of a greater one.
Yes, one that actually exists. You have contradicted yourself. The moment you say God does not exist, you are engaging in a logical absurdity. You're effectively saying, I am thinking of the being than which nothing greater can be conceived, but I am conceiving of him as not existing, which makes him less than the greatest. You have tied your logic into a knot.
Precisely. If greatness implies existence, which Anselm argues it does, then the definition forces God into reality. Therefore, God exists. Boom, mic drop. Anselm writes it down, sends it to the bishop, and probably thinks, checkmate universe. It is a verbal judo move. He is using the momentum of the definition to throw the skeptic right onto the mat.
It is brilliant. It is elegant. It relies on absolutely nothing but the meaning of words.
But I have to be the wet blanket here. I have to be the empiricist. It feels slippery. It feels like a word game. It feels like you have just defined something into existence by playing with the word great.
You are not the only one who thought that. Almost immediately, a fellow monk named Gonilo raised his hand. He was not an atheist either, but he basically said, Anselm, brother, this is ridiculous. You cannot just wish things into being with grammar.
Gonilo's objection is famous. He used the Lost Island analogy.
Right. But J.R. Ahmed, in our source material, updates this effectively to something we can all relate to much better, something much more important than an island, the perfect pizza.
I definitely prefer the pizza to the island. It speaks to me on a spiritual level.
Walk us through the perfect pizza objection. How does a pizza dismantle Anselm's Hightower logic?
Okay. So I am going to use Anselm's exact logic structure, but I am going to swap God for pizza. I want to define the perfect pizza. The pizza than which no greater pizza can be conceived.
Okay, I am listening. I am getting hungry. What is on this pizza?
It is strictly subjective, but let us say infinite pepperoni. The cheese has the perfect melt point. It never, ever gets rubbery. The crust is crisp but airy. It has 0 calories. In fact, eating it reverses aging and gives you the ability to fly. It is the ultimate pizza.
Sounds amazing. That pizza exists in my mind right now. I could smell basil.
Now ask yourself, is it greater for this perfect pizza to exist only in your mind or in your mind and on the table right in front of us?
Obviously on the table. A pizza I cannot eat is a tragedy. A real pizza is infinitely greater than an imaginary one.
Therefore, by Anselm's logic, if it did not exist on the table, it would not be the perfect pizza. So the perfect pizza must exist. Logic dictates that there is a calorie-free, age-reversing pizza floating around somewhere in the universe waiting for me.
And yet, looking around, sadly, the table is empty.
Exactly. This is reductio ad absurdum, reducing the argument to absurdity. Ganilo argued that if Anselm's logic works for God, it works for islands, pizzas, unicorns, or the perfect husband. It proves too much. It populates the universe with an infinite number of perfect things that obviously do not exist.
This is where the debate gets really technical, because Anselm did not just roll over and accept defeat. He and the philosophers who defended him later argued that Ganilo and you with your pizza are making a category error.
A category error, meaning I am comparing apples and oranges.
You are comparing pizza and God,
Yeah.
and logically they are not the same kind of thing at all.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
One is divine, one is delicious. But logically, why does that matter for the argument?
It matters because of two concepts: intrinsic maximums and contingency.
Break those down. Intrinsic maximums first.
Let us take the pizza. You said infinite pepperoni. Is that actually a maximum? Can you imagine a pizza with one more pepperoni?
I guess. Or a slightly larger pizza.
Sure.
Or slightly cheesier. Or maybe with a stuffed crust.
Right. Physical objects like islands or pizzas do not have an intrinsic maximum. You can always add a palm tree to the island. You can always add a slice to the pizza. The concept of a perfect island is incoherent because it is vague. It's like asking for the highest number. You can always add +1. But knowledge, power, those have intrinsic maximums. Omniscience is a hard ceiling. You know everything. You cannot know more than everything.
Okay, I see that distinction. The definition of God relies on absolutes, whereas the definition of a pizza relies on quantities.
Exactly. And the second point is even more important: contingency. This is a huge word in philosophy. A pizza is contingent.
Meaning it depends on things.
Yes. It depends on dough. It depends on an oven. It depends on a chef. It depends on a hungry person to order it. It can exist or it cannot exist. It is optional furniture in the universe. If the chef calls in sick, the pizza does not happen.
Whereas God is defined as a necessary being.
Correct. The source material highlights this heavily. God is not just a thing that is great. God is defined as the uncaused cause, the thing that does not depend on anything else. Anselm argues that you cannot compare a contingent pizza, which might not exist, to a necessary being, which by definition cannot not exist.
So he patches the hole in the boat. He says the logic only applies to the one thing in existence that is necessary. The pizza is a false analogy.
Yes. But even with that patch, the argument felt incomplete to some. It felt like it was still relying way too much on the word great. Greatness is subjective. What is great to you might be terrible to me. Maybe I hate pepperoni.
Which brings us to the 17th century, and the man who decided to strip the argument of its poetry and turn it into pure geometry, René Descartes.
Descartes, the father of modern philosophy, the I think, therefore I am guy. He looked at Anselm's argument and said, let us drop the greatness language. It is too fuzzy. Let us talk about perfection and essence.
He wanted to make it more like a mathematical proof. He used the triangle analogy.
This is a classic. I want you to imagine a triangle again. You do not have to draw it. Just hold the concept in your mind. A pure Euclidean triangle. What are the rules that make a triangle a triangle?
3 sides, 3 angles. The internal angles add up to 180 degrees.
Can you separate the concept of triangle from the concept of 3 sides?
No. Impossible. If you take away the 3 sides, it ceases to be a triangle. It becomes a line or a mess. 3-sidedness is part of the essence of the triangle. It is baked into the definition.
Exactly. It is an immutable nature. It does not matter if you are happy or sad, or if you're in France or on Mars. A triangle has 3 sides. Now, Descartes argues, what is the essence of a supremely perfect being?
Well, perfection implies having all positive attributes, power, knowledge, presence.
And existence.
Yeah.
Descartes argues that existence is the perfection. It is a positive attribute. It is better to exist than not to exist. Therefore, you cannot separate God from existence any more than you can separate triangle from 3 sides.
So to say God does not exist is a logical contradiction. It is like saying I have a 3-sided shape that has no sides.
Precisely. He took God out of the realm of belief and put him into the realm of definitions. If you understand the definition, you must accept the existence. It is not about faith anymore. It is about coherence.
It is incredibly neat. It is tidy. It feels like a steel trap. But I am the empiricist here. I look at the world, not just definitions. I have to push back.
Push away. Where does the triangle break?
Just because my definition of a triangle requires 3 sides, that does not mean there are any actual physical triangles floating in the cosmos. I can define a unicorn as a horse with a horn, The definition requires the horn. If I find a horse without a horn, it is not a unicorn. But that definition does not force a unicorn to materialize in my backyard.
You are touching on the difference between logical necessity and ontological necessity.
That sounds like jargon. Translate that for the listener.
Logical necessity is about words. Bachelors are unmarried men. That is necessary. You cannot have a married bachelor. But that does not prove that any bachelors actually exist. Maybe all men are married. The definition just tells you how the words relate. Descartes is being accused of confusing a definition with reality.
And this is where Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz enters the chat, right? He saw this flaw in Descartes.
Leibniz was a genius polymath. He invented calculus independently of Newton. He looked at Descartes and said, "You moved too fast. You missed a step."
What was the missing step?
Possibility.
Yeah.
Leibniz said before you can prove God exists, you first have to prove that the concept of God isn't a contradiction.
Like a square circle.
Exactly. I can say the word square circle. I can define it as a shape that is both round and has 4 corners. But can it exist?
No. The definitions contradict each other. It is an impossibility. It is nonsense.
Right. So if the concept of God is like a square circle, if omnipotence contradicts goodness, for example, or if justice contradicts mercy, then the whole argument collapses. The definition is void.
So Leibniz tried to prove that all perfections are compatible.
Yes. He argued that pure positive qualities, pure power, pure knowledge are simple and positive. They do not clash. They fit together like puzzle pieces. Therefore, a supremely perfect being is possible.
And then he drops the hammer.
Then comes the deduction.
What?
If a necessary being is possible, it must exist.
Wait. Walk me through that leap. Why does possible equal real? Usually possible just means maybe. It is possible I will win the lottery, but I probably will not.
Ah, but you are contingent. The lottery is contingent.
Yeah.
We're talking about a necessary being. Think about it. If a necessary being didn't exist, then it wouldn't be necessary. Its existence would be impossible.
Right.
If a necessary being is contingent, like maybe yes, maybe
Right.
no, it is not a necessary being. So the only way a necessary being does not exist is if it is impossible. Leibniz proved it is not impossible. Therefore,
it is inevitable.
boom. If God is possible, God is actual.
I have to admit, that makes my head spin. It is like a logical trapdoor. You agree to one little thing, okay, sure, God is possible, and suddenly you fall through the floor and land in God exists.
It is dizzying. It is the mind climbing a ladder made of its own neurons to reach the absolute. It feels like cheating, but you cannot find the rule being broken.
But does the ladder actually touch the ground? Or is it just hanging in the air? Because we have to talk about the man who brought the sledgehammer to this whole structure. The man who basically shouted, "Stop playing word games," Immanuel Kant.
Kant, the buzzkill of the Enlightenment. He did not just attack the argument, he attacked the grammar. He attacked the way we use language.
He attacked the idea that existence is a property you can just add to a list. His famous line is, "Existence is not a predicate."
Existence is not a predicate.
Yeah.
That is the cornerstone of the skepticism against this argument. We need to unpack that for you, the listener, because it sounds like a grammar lesson, but it's actually a massive reality check. What is a predicate?
A predicate is a description. It adds information to a subject. If I say the car is red, red is a predicate. It narrows down the concept. It tells you something about the car. If I say the car is fast, fast is a predicate. If I say the car has leather seats, that is a predicate.
Okay, so I have a concept of a car. Red, fast, convertible, leather seats.
Now, if I say the car exists, have I added any new information to the concept of the car? Does a car look different in your mind? Is it redder? Is it faster? Does it smell more like leather?
No, the picture in my head is exactly the same.
Exactly. Kant argues that existence isn't a quality you add to the blueprint. It is not a feature. It is the act of the blueprint being actualized in the world. You cannot say, "Here is my list of ingredients for God. Omnipotence goodness, and let us sprinkle in some existence to make it perfect."
I see. He is saying that when Anselm and Descartes treat existence as a perfection, like it is a shiny chrome rim on a car, they're making a grammatical error.
He used the example of 100 thalers, which were gold coins back then. He said, describe 100 real thalers. Now describe 100 imaginary thalers. The mathematical description is identical. The gold content, the weight, the engraving, it is all the same in the description. The only difference is that one set buys you lunch and the other does not. But the concept is the same.
So you cannot define God into existence because existence isn't part of the definition. It is a status.
Exactly. That seemed to be the knockout blow. For about 200 years, the ontological argument was dead in the water. People thought Kant killed it. They buried it in the graveyard of bad ideas.
But ideas are zombie-like, especially big ideas. They come back. And in the 20th century, a philosopher named Alvin Plantinga resurrected it, using some very high-level sci-fi logic.
Modal logic. This is where we get into the heavy lifting.
This gets a little trippy, so stick with us. Modal logic is the logic of possible worlds.
And we are not talking about other planets like Mars or Venus. We are talking about alternate realities, the multiverse.
Right. Imagine an infinite set of possible worlds. In World A, I'm hosting this deep dive. In World B, I decided to become a dentist, and I am drilling a tooth right now. In World C, humans never evolved, and lizards run the planet. These are all logically possible scenarios. They do not contradict the laws of logic.
Okay, got it. The multiverse of possibility.
Plantinga makes a distinction between maximal excellence and maximal greatness. This is the key. Maximal excellence means having all the powers, omniscience, omnipotence, moral perfection in a specific world.
So in World A, there is a God who is all-powerful.
Right. But Plantinga says that is not enough. To be truly maximally great, you cannot just be lucky enough to exist in World A. You have to be so robust, so unstoppable, that you exist in every single possible world.
So maximal greatness is maximal excellence across the entire multiverse. If you are missing from even one world, you aren't maximally great.
Exactly. Now here's the trick. Follow the bouncing ball. Premise 1. It is possible that a maximally great being exists, meaning there is at least one possible world where he exists.
Okay, I will grant that. It is not a contradiction. So let us say, in World Z, God exists.
Premise 2. If he exists in World Z, by definition of maximal greatness, he must exist in all worlds.
Because if he did not exist in all of them, he would not be maximally great in World Z. He would just be pretty good.
Premise 3. Our world, the actual world, is one of the possible worlds.
Therefore, he exists here.
It is logically airtight. If you accept that God is possible, and you accept the definition of maximal greatness, you are mathematically forced to accept his existence in this world. You cannot escape it.
It is brilliant. It avoids Kant's problem because it is not treating existence as a predicate. It is treating necessary existence as a modal property. It is using the rules of probability against us. But
I hear a big but coming. I can hear the empiricist grinding his teeth.
But it still feels cold. It feels like we have trapped God in a cage of logic. We have proved he must be there, but we haven't found him. It is like proving the existence of a perfect spouse using an equation. You might prove they exist, but you are still coming home to an empty house. It lacks presence. It lacks life.
And that is the perfect transition. Because this is where J.R. Ahmed's source material shifts gears completely. We are leaving the dusty lecture halls of Europe, we are leaving the abstract multiverse, and we are opening the Quran.
And the atmosphere changes instantly.
It really does. It is like stepping out of a sterile lab and into a lush forest. The source makes a profound point. The Quran does not try to prove God exists. It does not treat God as the conclusion to a math problem.
No. In the Quran, God is the premise.
The source calls it self-evident truth. It is not about building a tower of words to reach God. It is about opening your eyes and realizing the tower, the ground, and you yourself are being sustained by him.
Let us look at the specific verses J.R. Ahmed highlights. We have to start with Surah Al-Ikhlas. It is a short chapter 4 verses, but it is pure ontology. It is the definition of reality.
Say he is God the one and unique. God is As-Samad.
Let us start right there. That word, As-Samad.
This is an incredibly deep term in Arabic. It is famously difficult to translate. It is often translated as the eternal refuge or the self-sufficient. But the root implies something solid, something without gaps, something that everything else turns to in need, but which needs nothing.
Think about that in relation to Anselm. Anselm was trying to argue for a necessary being, a being that cannot not exist. As-Samad captures that necessity, but it changes the dynamic. It is not just that he exists logically, it is that reality itself hangs on him. He is the bedrock.
The verse continues, he begets not, nor is he begotten.
This is the absolute denial of contingency. If you are born, you are contingent. You depend on your parents. You depend on biology. You have a start date. If you are begotten, you have a cause. The Quran is stating clearly that God is the uncaused cause. He has no origin. He is outside the chain of dominoes.
And nor is there to him any equivalent. That echoes the uniqueness we talked about earlier. If there were two necessary beings, they would limit each other. There can only be one ultimate reality.
So while Anselm is playing word games to prove existence is a perfection, the Quran simply states existence is his essence. He does not have existence like I have a microphone. He is the reality that allows the microphone to exist in the first place.
It reframes the whole debate. The source material points out that for the Quran, asking does God exist is almost an absurd question. It is like asking, does light exist while you're standing outside in the sun? The question implies you are blind.
Or that you are looking in the wrong direction entirely. The rationalists are looking for a proof of the sun by studying shadows, while the Quran says, look by the light of the sun.
And this leads us to the second major concept the source explores, the contrast between the dead God of logic and the living God of revelation.
The dead god of logic? That sounds harsh.
Well, think about it. The necessary being of the philosophers can feel very static, like a mathematical constant. Pi exists necessarily. Pi is eternal. Pi is perfect. But pi does not care about you. Pi does not listen to you. Pi does not sustain the universe. It just describes a ratio. A God derived purely from logic does not have to be alive.
I see. A necessary being could just be a force field or a set of laws. It does not have to be a who.
Exactly. And this brings us to Ayat al-Kursi, the verse of the throne, probably the most famous verse in the entire Quran. And it introduces two massive names of God, Al-Hay and Al-Qayyum.
Al-Hay means the ever-living. Not just alive, but life itself, the source of all life. And Al-Qayyum, this is the one that really connects to our topic today.
The sustainer of all, or the self-subsisting.
The source uses a really interesting analogy here to explain Al-Qayyum. It compares the universe to a mirror reflection.
A mirror reflection. Let us unpack that. That is good imagery.
Imagine a mirror reflecting a powerful beam of light. The image in the mirror exists right. You can see it, you can photograph it, but its existence is totally contingent. It depends entirely moment to moment on the light source.
If you turn off the light, the image does not just stop working, it vanishes entirely. It ceases to be.
Precisely. So the universe is Havas, the stars, the pizza, the atoms, this deep dive. We are the image in the mirror. We are contingent. We do not have our own battery. We need a source.
And Al-Qayyum is that source. He is the light.
And the verse drives this home with a very specific detail. Neither slumber nor sleep overtakes him.
That is such a powerful image. Why mention sleep? Is God getting tired?
No, it is about ontology. It is about the mechanics of existence. If the sustainer slept, even for a microsecond, if he looked away, if he stopped pouring existence into the universe, the image in the mirror would vanish. Total annihilation. The necessary being of the Quran is not just a definition that sits on a shelf. It is an active sustaining force that holds reality together right now.
That honestly gives me chills. It is a very different vibe from that than nothing greater can be conceived. It is visceral. It makes the dependence personal.
It addresses the so what question. Anselm proves God exists logically. Great. So what? I still have to pay my taxes. But the Quran argues that God exists necessarily and sustainingly. That means your existence right now as you listen to this is being actively upheld by that reality. You are plugged in.
So we have the rationalist approach. Anselm, Descartes, Plantinga, building a structure from the top down using the mind. And we have the Quranic approach, declaring the foundation from the center out.
But here is where the source material brings them together. It is the convergence. Because the Quran does not ask you to just blindly accept this. It does not say, do not think, just believe.
No, it challenges you to think. It appeals to the ulul albab, the people of understanding.
The source quotes Surah Al-Imran. Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth and the alternation of the night and the day are signs for those of understanding.
Signs, ayat. This is crucial. A sign isn't the thing itself. It points to the thing. A road sign isn't the city. It tells you the city is ahead.
The Quran is saying, look at the order. Look at the rhythm of night and day. Look at the physics. Look at the biology.
Use your empiricism. That is your favorite tool.
I know. That is exactly why I like this part. It is saying, take your observation and apply your intellect. When you see a system that is not chaotic, that serves a purpose, reason dictates it isn't random.
Our Lord, you did not create this in vain. That is the conclusion of the people of understanding in that verse.
It is teleology meeting ontology. Teleology is the study of purpose. The fact that the universe makes sense, that it follows laws, that math works, points back to that necessary being.
That is a deep thought. Think about it. Anselm's logic only works because our minds are wired to detect logical truth. We have a truth detector installed. The Quran suggests that wiring is there for a reason. It is there to help us read the signs.
So the trap of the ontological argument, maybe it is not a trap. Maybe it is a calibration.
A calibration.
Yeah, maybe the reason it feels so dizzying to think about a necessary being is because we are trying to look directly at the sun. Our minds are used to looking at things. Tables, chairs, pizzas, things that are contingent, things that have edges. When we try to focus on the one thing that cannot disappear, the one thing that has no edges, our mental gears just grind a bit.
It is the vertigo of the absolute.
Exactly. We get dizzy because we are realizing how small we are. We are realizing we are the reflection, not the light.
Let us try to synthesize this for the listener. We have covered 1,000 years of history in this deep dive. We started with a bold claim that you can think God into existence.
We saw Anselm argue that a perfect being must be real to be truly perfect, or else he falls short of his own definition. He built the logical tower.
We saw the skeptics Ganilo and his island Kant and his Thailers argue that you cannot just add existence as a topping on a concept. You cannot fake reality with grammar.
We saw Plantinga rescue the logic with possible worlds, proving that if God is even possible, he becomes inevitable across the entire multiverse.
And finally, we saw the Quranic perspective shift the camera. It's not about defining God. It's about realizing that God is the Al-Qayyum, the sustainer of the definition itself.
The universe isn't a puzzle to be solved. It is a building being held up.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this deep dive?
I think it challenges us to look at reality differently. We usually think of real as what we can touch. The table is real, the computer is real, the idea of God is abstract.
Right. Matter is hard, spirit is soft.
But this deep dive flips it entirely. It suggests that the table is actually the fragile, abstract thing. It is contingent. It is just atoms temporarily held together by forces. It will rot. It will vanish. It is a temporary arrangement. The idea, the necessary being, is the only thing that is solid rock.
That is a heavy realization. We are the ghosts. He is the reality.
In a way, yes. We are the shadows on the wall. He is the light.
I want to leave you, the listener, with one final, slightly provocative thought to chew on today. A little bit of homework for your brain.
Go for it.
We have spent this whole time asking if we can think God into existence. But if the Quranic view of Al-Qayyum the sustainer is true, and if we are just contingent beings relying on his energy to exist moment to moment,
I think I see where you're going.
then the question isn't whether we can think him into existence. The actual question is, are we just thoughts being maintained by the ultimate thinker?
Are we the dream or the dreamer?
If he stops thinking of us, if the sustainer looks away, do we vanish like the pizza in my imagination?
That is terrifying and beautiful. It implies we are held in existence by a constant act of will.
It really puts things in perspective. The ontological argument isn't just a dusty old debate about logic. It is a fundamental question about who is holding the pen that writes the story of the universe.
And that is a deep dive absolutely worth taking.
It sure is. Thank you for going down the rabbit hole with us. Keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
See you next time.